Not the school computer?
This one?
Yeah.
No,
Still not.
no, I can't run that thing.
It's not the same when you have rest.
So, okay, we're all ready to go on my end. Yeah, I don't know why everyone says 5:59. Everything else says 5:59. So we are employee has a countdown.
Can you sign in, please?
Oh. Okay, it's 6:00, so we'll start this meeting and pledge to order by beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
call roll. Molly? Here. Rebecca? Here. Justin?
Here.
Matt?
Here.
Debbie? Here. 5 members present. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Justin?
No.
Next up on our agenda is celebrations, starting with the All-State Symphony Orchestra.
This was when us, we'll present this.
This is going to present this.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. So I'm very excited to share with you Lily Muir. She was invited to audition with some incredibly challenging music. She submitted a recorded audition to some very strict and critical judges with her upright face, right? She did very well, to say the least. She was selected as one of only 4 members throughout the state of Colorado to join the symphonic orchestra for the All-State in Colorado, in which she will get to go and play in February in Fort Collins. We're super proud of her.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How long have you been playing it, Lily?
About 8 years now.
The
Yeah.
same instrument?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, the board has a certificate of congratulations. Kind of up there and congratulate Lily and take a picture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's turn this way.
It's a little crowded up there, sorry.
Short people in front. Short people in front.
Okay, 1, 2,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's so exciting. All your hard work.
Thank you.
You started with B. Frank, right?
Yeah, I did.
How old were you? So 8 years.
8, yeah.
8 years old.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Excited.
What is?
A way to get a family for participating and listening to the practicing at home.
Right.
Good to pick a smaller instrument, huh?
Go big or go home.
So do you go up there and practice for a day or so with the orchestra and then perform? How does this work?
Yeah, I'll go up there and I'll have a chair audition. So I'll have excerpts that I prepare, and I'm not sure if I have a sight reading audition as well. I'll have to look more into it, and then that will decide my seating in our ensemble, and then that will be my place for our concert. So yeah.
So do you know if there's a way that the public can watch it? Are you on YouTube, or is there a way we can?
They'll have a live stream that I could share out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be streamed live, so it'll be pretty neat.
Yes.
Get that to me, I'll share that with the board.
Okay,
Yeah, we
absolutely.
would love that.
And then when you go up, do you, like with your, I don't know, attire, whatever you wear in your orchestra, do you represent Bayfield, or do you all have to wear the same thing? How does that?
We'll all have to wear the same thing. It's concert black. Sometimes it varies for the boys, but girls, it's always black head to toe. So
We can have some like purple earrings.
that's a good idea.
I was thinking of a big purple hat. We can pick you out of the crowd.
It's the Wolverine's
Stand
face.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
Paint a purple and gold.
There you go.
Congratulations. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
We will not hold you guys hostage.
Okay.
We'll hold more of you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. Good job, Monica.
See ya.
Bye.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
guys. So next up on the agenda are in-person communications from the audience. Do we have anyone here who would like to speak? Okay. None being heard, we'll move on to district reports, starting with Mr. Hanhart and the superintendent report.
Thank you. First, on behalf of the entire district, thank you to the Board of Education for the holiday bonus. We appreciate your dedication to our staff, and it was great having you in our buildings. For those of you that were available to make it before break. Please note that our next meeting will begin with a work session at 5 o'clock to discuss our facility management plan, future planning at Bayfield High School, and staff salaries and how we move forward over the next few years. We'll follow that with a short regular meeting to take care of some financial business. We're reviewing applicants for the media specialist position and hope to begin that hiring process in the next week. Just a reminder that we have implemented the new bell schedule at Bayfield High School that limits the number of days that we offer our academy class. This schedule is more in line with our continuous improvement efforts throughout the district. Please remember that we do not have school on Monday, January 15th for Martin Luther King Day. We will have school on Friday, January the 19th. We continue our efforts on implementation of continuous improvement strategies. We'll provide you with a summary of the feedback that we received from our staff through the rounding conversations that we had throughout the fall, and we'll provide that to you soon. We're having planning conversations with directors and principals for the 2024-2025 school year. Our primary focus in those conversations will be budget and will be staffing. We're focused on potential employment openings for the 2024-2025 school year. We'll be posting the BIS principal position soon and gathering community and staff feedback as part of our administrative interviewing procedure. We will be compiling a list of open positions across the district for an anticipated February, probably February 15th posting timeline. Mr. Turner and I have spoken regarding legislative updates, and at this point, the legislative agenda is not clear, so we will update you as we receive more concrete details on the bills that will be presented in this year's legislative session. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Henry?
On your planning conversations, for on focus on budget and staffing, are you seeing, we're gonna have some significant increases, decreases? And how about for staffing? How does that go?
No.
No to both?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see any increases, and that'll be part of our work session conversation before we go into the budget, is looking at salaries. That is, and I've said that multiple times, is the focus of this administration, is to build staff salaries and to ensure that we're an attractive district salary-wise to come to. So my conversations come down to the departments and visiting with each department on what their budget looks like for next year and if they have any budgetary needs that we have not taken care of. And on occasion, there's different things that come up, or staffing and having that conversation. Where are you at with staffing? Are we appropriately staffed? Do we need to increase staff? Do we need to decrease staff as we move into next year? Our primary staffing numbers are always going to be based on enrollment, always, because that's the key to budget. Everything else is our student enrollment.
Okay. So
we'll project that. For example, at the high school, we'll look at their projected enrollment numbers by rolling the 8th grade up and taking the 12th grade out. And that'll project what our budgetary needs are at the high school for next year, and same with the other buildings.
Okay.
Did that answer?
Yep. I guess same thing for building budget, infrastructure, stuff like that. We'll be looking into that. And
we're
adding a line item for it and putting money away.
And I'll work with Ms. Lassiter, and I think a lot of the conversation, Mr. Talbot's going to come out of that work session that we do at our next meeting, to really start discussing it. We set aside money this year knowing that we had neglected repairs and maintenance over the years and replacement. We have not had a replacement schedule in the district, and so we've started creating that. Mr. Hesford and Mr. Corcoran are working on creating that right now for us so that we can take a good look at that on the 24th, 23rd, and identifying if there's other needs. So for example, this year we set aside $1.2 million for purchases of vehicles and some other of the big needs. We had some boilers that we had to replace, and there was never planned. So now we're trying to put together so there's a plan, so every year the superintendent can come to the board as we look at the budget and say, we believe we're going to need this much to be able to upkeep our facilities at the level that they need to, so that we don't get ourselves caught in a year that everything breaks and we had not set aside the money to be able to do that.
Thank you.
You bet.
On the rounding conversations, I know we talked about this in our staff and dev meetings, but can you remind me how often those are happening?
Right now they're happening once a quarter, and we'll continue that. Our first one was throughout the fall, and that's our work with Benita Coleman. As we started that, and they're very set questions, and it's just getting the general feeling from the staff and from different departments of where are we at, what are their needs, how are they doing, what challenges are they facing, who do we need to thank for their success.
How often does Benita come?
She comes 8 times throughout the year.
Okay.
but we told her Benita's not a fan of the snow. So, so Mr. Hesford and I met with her in December, and we really didn't feel the need to have her here in person. Our next conversation we thought would be handled very easily virtually, and it actually works better in our schedule to be able to do that. So, yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
are the central admin staff part of the continuous improvement, like the rounding conversations?
Oh,
and stuff?
absolutely.
So they do the same like quarterly? Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good. I just, new card again. Who's Benita, Anita?
Oh, Benita?
Yeah.
She's, why don't you explain it? Easier than I
Go ahead.
She's like a consultant that is helping the school district with their different roundtables and discussions on improving the district. And she comes from, she wasn't a superintendent, but she was a superintendent, yeah.
She went to the state?
No, she's an independent consultant, yeah.
Here on students. So
Yeah.
we decided a couple of years ago.
Now you
I just want to see if I've done any good telling you guys over the last 2 years. We decided a couple of years ago that our focus was going to be on continuous improvement in the district and really looking at all of our systems, looking at everything that we do, deciding, are they working? If they're not, do we need them? And making the decision to abandon things if we need to, making the decision to adopt what we needed to adopt, and being very, very cautious as we went through everything line by line and looked at everything that we were doing in the district and aligning those with our goals. Huron Studer is a company that focuses on education. They began in the hospital business and moved into education. And so they have a coach that works with us to do those. And so that'll be things like our rounding efforts that we're doing. You're going to see scorecards. They'll be very public facing from the district and then from each building. So it really starts tying all the pieces to our goals. And we had our title money allocated differently before, and we opted to use our title money to look at that and bring in Huron Studer as a coach, and it has been phenomenal for all of us and for all of our leaders.
That was my question. Where's the money come from for that? But just answered it.
Yeah, she's really impressive. I really enjoyed getting to meet her at one of our retreats. She came to our board retreat.
Really
Yeah, she's very knowledgeable, and I think she's a good investment.
It was not new funds, Ms. Orndorff, it was a reallocation of funds to something meaningful. We as the district for a long time have had a little bit of a bright shiny object syndrome. And the follow through with a lot of those things has not been at the level it should have been. So really, we started by looking just real deep into everything that we were doing and trying to take the load really off the teachers and our staff. Every time a new thing shows up, you add that, and then the staff who bought into the last thing has that, so we keep adding it. So we really try to remove that and get us one central focus. So we reallocated our Title II funds.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
No.
We'll move on to board member reports, starting with Mr. Talbot and policies. Do you have anything for us?
I do. I believe Leon was going to review that. Is that correct?
Correct. I'll review that policy during discussion, if that's okay.
Yep, that sounds good. And then Ms. Orange with finance.
We meet next Tuesday, my first finance committee meeting, so the next board meeting should have a report.
Sounds good. And Mr. Turner with legislative.
Yes, Superintendent Hanhart kind of took this on and explained this. The legislative session started this week. Everything right now is so confusing. Things are changing so fast that it's not really worth diving into yet. And so hopefully next meeting I'll actually have a report and stop saying next meeting.
Okay. Sounds good. Another, this will help.
Might have a meeting tomorrow sometime.
And then Sac and Mac don't meet until end of January, beginning of February, so I don't have anything to report either. So we will move on to district reports and a math curriculum update. I think that's Mr. Hester.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. Thank you for the time. In your documents, I provided the general outline of our process. So I know we have some new folks, and so I'll briefly go through things that have already taken place. The decision was made at the end of last school year that we would explore options for replacing our secondary mathematics curriculum, so Bayfield Middle School and Bayfield High School math curriculum. In August, we convened a team with input from principals on who would be a part of that team. Throughout the fall, we've had 2 meetings to discuss course structure and what kind of a curriculum we actually want to pursue. So I'll talk about that again in a moment. I think my last update, we were still discussing what course structure we were going to pursue for our secondary math curriculum, and that decision was made at our last meeting in December. So I'll say more about that. But currently we are in researching materials phase. So that phase kind of goes all the way through the middle part of the year. And what we're working on right now is contacting actual vendors whose products we believe fit our instructional vision and the course structure at Bayfield High School that we want to pursue, called Integrated Math. So at the very bottom of page 1, you'll see the actual products, the actual vendors, and the product names of the companies that I've been in touch with so far. We'll get those materials on site. We'll put our teams together to take a look at those and compare the actual materials with a rubric that's designed to help us pick out certain aspects of curriculum that are going to help determine whether they'll be effective to meet our needs. And we will probably only perform that operation with 2 or 3 of these 6. Once we get our hands on these, we'll narrow it down to which ones we want to compare to the rubric. And we hope to have a decision on this curriculum in early March. And the reason for that timeline is that we can get materials into the hands of teachers in the spring and reduce the amount of fatigue in August of next year, trying to get people to learn new curriculum in only a couple of days of prep time for school is always really stressful. So when we did that early decision last year, we had pretty good feedback that being able to do some training in May and then even some over the summer and lessening the load in August was a good process. So I referenced the course structure at Bayfield High School, which is driving some of this decision making. We've decided tentatively to at least explore products that would allow us to go from an Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 course structure at the high school into what's called an integrated structure, which is more of a Math 1, Math 2, Math 3 at the high school. And the idea being that you take a lot of the concepts that connect across Algebra, Geometry, and Algebra 2 and teach them in a different sequence. So in conversation with our math team, we've decided to explore those products, and that fits with some of our future visioning at Bayfield High School. I won't dive into that because that's not out of my lane, but that's the conversation. And I think I touched on all the points that I wanted to make sure you knew about. Can I answer any questions?
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
One, do any of the students get to help in exploring any of these? Like, do they get to see like what sample lessons? I don't know how that looks, but
In the
they're
sense
the ones
that
going to be learning this curriculum.
In the sense
So
that teachers will, when we get samples, teachers usually bring it to classrooms and try it out. And so
they get to kind of practice.
they get to interact with it, and we get
Okay.
teacher feedback on whether or not there's a preference.
Well, that's good. And then,
And they all, of course, have online subscription. A lot of it's interactive online platforms. Pretty much everybody, you get a paper book and you have an online platform for almost everything we look at these days.
And then do the 5th grade teachers have any input because obviously you want to have it be continuous?
Yeah, no, so one of the things that we will do before making a final decision is crosswalk our current elementary curriculum with new products for the middle school to make sure that there's
so it doesn't just
some cohesion.
flip,
Yeah, because it'll definitely be a different product. We have the product that we use at the K5, they don't even offer a secondary product, so there's no way it'll be the same vendor. But we are not set in stone, but highly encouraging that the high school course structure kind of drives the fact that these are products that these vendors have products that meet that course structure, we really want to have the same product 6 to 12 because it helps build that consistency across buildings. So, like I said, that's not set in stone, but I'm hopeful that we'll arrive at one vendor for the 6 through 12 product.
Actually, I have a third question now.
Okay.
Do any of the other local schools use any of these curriculums?
I haven't quite got that far yet.
Oh, okay.
So this list has only been generated since our last meeting, which was in early December. So really, we've been out more than we've been in during that time. But that's certainly something that we will research. Usually when you get in touch with these vendors and they realize where you are, they're like, oh, we work with so-and-so, they know. And so that stuff comes to light. I was gonna make another point that escaped me, sorry.
Yeah, so those were my two questions, is consistency.
Mhm.
And then are your math teachers, are they at the table currently to help make those decisions and hopefully interact and talk amongst each other to help make a decision?
So currently, each building has one representative on the team, on the larger team. So I mean, the two buildings each have a representative. When we put everybody in the room to actually compare the products to the rubrics, that'll be bigger teams with almost all of our math teachers, our secondary math teachers, which is still not a huge team. So we're 6 or 7 people, and then the principals, which is a manageable size. If you get too many more than that, it's hard to have a discussion.
And then at this level that you're looking for math curriculum, how does that look for the younger kids in elementary school coming up? Does that all kind of make a smooth transition into that as well? I mean, just to make sure kids aren't being taught this way and then they get here and it's a different way, or.
And that's that kind of crosswalk work and making sure that we get those products in front of teachers so that they can look at it and say, I don't think this matches up with what our kids are coming to us with. The decision was made that we're happy enough with our K-5 product not to try and replace it right now. Part of that decision was the fact that we did an ELA curriculum at K-5 last year, and that's a lot to take on, 2 curriculum over 2 years. The difference at elementary of literacy curriculum is every teacher, right? Every classroom teacher, and literacy or your ELA curriculum that we adopted last year at the middle school and high school is only 3 or 4 year teachers. So if you then go to math, you're impacting a different set of staff. The elementary school, it's the same. It's all the same people. So we will see where we land on math.
I'm excited because I feel like math is where we need to improve.
I think our high school product is a Pearson product that has done fairly well for us since like 2008. So that's a long time to be with the same product.
You should see which one attracts math teachers the most. Because then when we hire new
For
teachers,
recruitment
you can
purposes?
say, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
the curriculum we have."
Trouble with asking those questions to the vendors is they're all going to tell you,
Yes,
of course, that
theirs.
theirs is number one.
Where does the curriculum rubric come from exactly?
The one that we're using is one developed by the state Department of Education in Massachusetts.
Okay.
We used the one that they developed after researching several for literacy, and we were happy with that. And then because that was good, we looked at the math one. The math one's pretty robust. I brought copies of it just in case anybody wanted to see it and get a feel for it. And as soon as I hand those to you guys, I make sure I get broken copies. So maybe for the record, yeah, we have one of them end up over there, so it gets in the record.
So is this just like the ELA curriculum where there is a state approved list that we have to follow?
No.
Okay.
Nope, that is not true for math. And the traditional versus integrated curriculum that I've mentioned, that we're moving from one to the other, the state does not take a position. It recognizes both as equally valid, so districts basically get to follow their preference.
That's good.
Yeah, and that's stated explicitly on their website. I meant to mention that the products that we have selected for review are all products that score in what's called all green on edreports.org. I talked to you guys about that last year. That saves us a lot of time and effort in making sure that we're not wasting time on products that are not that don't review well. So edreports.org, anybody can find these products on that website easily. It's really user-friendly website, and it's become pretty quickly the end-all be-all for curriculum review clearinghouse.
And you said there's almost all of them have an online as well as textbook version.
All of
Can
them.
parents access that when they're trying to help their kids at home? Because sometimes it's, instead of Googling
Yeah.
how do you do these problems,
It's tricky. Sometimes yes and sometimes no. I mean, and it differs from product to product.
I know, Bill, for the ELA curriculum, we did some open house forums where people could come in, and I also know the turnout was not great.
Mhm.
But is there a certain number that will hold us down to before we go for the?
I'd like that number to be two.
Two,
If
okay.
it's three, that's not the end of the world, but I'm hoping we can get it to two.
Okay.
Actually, I mean, for public review, we only brought our
Was it
finalists,
just the final?
our actual
Okay.
recommendation.
Okay,
And my assumption was that process would roll out in a really similar way, unless we want to brainstorm other ways to get those materials into, for public facing review.
okay,
That'll be in March.
okay, so we've got a little bit of time to think about that.
But I'm glad you brought it up because it is something to think about. If we think we can get better participation in a different way,
Right,
how do you do
then
this?
then
we did open houses at each building, and even here at the admin building, if I remember correctly, but they did push it out in a lot of different ways, but I don't remember that, I mean.
we had a few people attend, but we never reached double digits anywhere as far as attendance.
I don't remember. I wonder if an online, I feel like.
You can't.
That was a problem.
No, because to look at the entire curriculum, it's copyrighted, and the curriculum companies will not provide you with an online version to send out to parents.
Can
So we have
someone
to do
make
it.
up a little sample lesson?
That would be copyright infringement that we would take away from them. So we have to set it, we pushed it out very hard in communications. And like Mr. Hesford said, we had options here. We had options in every one of the buildings that were looking at curriculum. And a few people came, and that's common. There's no surprise there. It's not, most people do not come in and sit and review curriculum unless it's controversial. Math curriculum is not going to be very controversial. Social studies curriculum, different conversation. But math curriculum is not a controversial one. ELA really wasn't. We had a few people come in and review it, and they left us notes, and we compiled those notes and gave them to the board the same night as we adopted the curriculum.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if parents can come in, if there's, just options so that people can see and check with the students. I feel like the students are.
And we'll reiterate to folks that our curriculums are always open for review, by appointment. It's reasonable to expect they're not ready at the drop of a hat, but with notice, we can make stuff available to folks.
And we did, Ms. Orndorff, link the companies, and you can go in and see, they're still selling the product, right? So you can see samples, but I want to be very clear about real small samples of what it is, and parents can research that. And we have done that. But in terms of taking the entire curriculum, it really is one of those, you come in and look at the product that's sitting there.
Any other questions for Mr. Hesford? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take that back for you if nobody wants to keep it.
The other one.
I gave it to
The other one.
Thank you
done.
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have both the personnel agenda and the minutes from December 12th, 2023. Has everyone had a chance to review those, and does anyone have any questions on the consent agenda?
And you're on the, and this considers the personnel agenda, is that what you're saying?
Personnel agenda, correct, and the minutes from December 12th, 2023.
I guess on the employment part, I'll be redundant. Are the new employees qualified, certified, and the best candidates for the position?
Ms. Ho, would you like to address that?
They are, do you want to? Both of the new classified employees that we have on there are certified. They are both licensed in Colorado, and they both have years of experience. One of them has 10 years. They're both from Texas. One of them has 16 years, and the other one's around 20. Those numbers are not exact, but that's a lot of experience for both teachers and certified.
That's all I had on that. And then on the, just a comment on the resignation part, just, as I read through the emails, et cetera, that were shared with us, hoping that there was some sort of conversation or, yeah, I guess conversation on the email that was sent and shared with everybody.
Did you guys like to address that?
Without going into too big of a detail with it being a personnel issue, yes.
There are follow-ups occurring.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Hope.
I just noticed, look here, at the bottom, what happened in 2024.
These things.
Oh, it's Sam's. That made me feel, I haven't seen anything like that yet.
Okay, so with no further questions, would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, which includes the personnel agenda and the minutes of December 12th, 2023 meeting as presented.
I will second that.
Who would you like to call the question? Molly. Aye. Rebecca. Aye. Justin.
Aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Debbie.
Aye.
Consent agenda carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving into discussion, the first item is the mill levy certification.
I'm gonna start that and then turn it over. So for Ms. Orndorff, Mr. Talbot, this is, we have to certify the mill levy on an annual basis. There's deadlines that are given to us by the state. That deadline, of course, is tomorrow. So this was the board meeting closest to it. I've asked Ms. Lassiter and Mr. Morris here as well to present the mill levy certification to you as a discussion item, and we will bring it back as an action item later this evening.
Quick question on that. Timing wise, is it always kind of like this? Is this kind of how it always lines up where there's not really much?
Typically done in December, but when Prop HH failed, the governor kind of scrambled and called a special legislative session and introduced 2 Senate bills to provide some property tax relief that was intended to occur if Prop HH passed.
Okay.
But in response, further response to your question, yes, it's always a tight window because the counties have a certain amount of time to get their certification of assessed values to us. And then we get to take those and based on certain rules, regulations, assessments that we are allowed to do, we have to make up the assessment, but then we get it to the board. And so it's really usually a tight window in both December as well as this year.
It usually happens in December.
I just feel like for such a large item, that doesn't give you guys much
No.
time to really
It doesn't.
dig into it deep. I mean, I'm sure you do, but yeah.
Yeah, so the counties had until the 3rd of Jan to provide us with the final certification, and then we have to file it with the state by, the county and the state by the time.
So there's times that we have to call a special meeting to do it, because if it doesn't land, then we get a short window to be able to get it all done.
So property taxes are one component of the district's revenue. I'm going to refer you to the top link. There's 3 documents in the BOE packet. They're one component of the district's total program funding, and any local jurisdiction within Colorado that's planning to levy a property tax has to submit a certification of that tax levy to the county. So the first sheet is mainly just to kind of facilitate and provide information on what's going into the certification. And then the final two sheets are the actual certification documents themselves. The top level is the final assessed value of the district, and that is comprised of La Plata County and Archuleta County. It's about 90, almost 98% La Plata County, and the remaining percent is Archuleta County. Respective changes there in the notes. How that comps statewide is that of the 64 counties in Colorado, the average increase was about 42%. Total program revenue then, based on that assessed value, is going to be the $3,389,000. The top section are all dollar amounts, and the bottom section are the mills that correspond with that. So the next item, voter approved, that represents the 2 mill overrides that are in place. It's referenced in footnote 1. The hold harmless line item is set by the county as well as the abatement item. And then you get the sum for the total general fund. And then in addition to that, we have 2 voter approved debt increases, both the Series 12 and the Series 2013 GO bonds. We're permitted to collect about exactly what we do to fund the bond redemption fund every year to make the principal interest payment on that outstanding debt. And then the below items are the mills, basically, that represent each one of those dollar amounts. That second document there is the one that's going to be signed by the board president. And then we file that with both the state and the county.
Anything we can clarify, or clear as mud.
Just wait until finance committee meeting next week.
So we can ask.
Learn all this.
And it's, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
It might, Ms. Orndorff, on that, I think that's you said something that really is interesting to me. It might be good for you and Ms. Lassiter and Mr. Moore to sit down even prior to that and really kind of go over some of these things that you might have questions about. Because the finance committee meeting, of course, we're going to jump into the budget, the adjusted budget and things like that. So if there's anything we can do or our team can do to help you get caught up on those, feel free to email those to me, or we can set up a meeting.
Just going with the huge learning curve.
School, so on school finance, CASB offers lots and lots of stuff. If you have time to sit down and watch some of their webinar stuff.
They post both the video of the training and then the actual presentation itself on the CDE website, and I can show you how to find them.
Thanks.
Sure. And you can also access historic ones, so you have access to the entire curriculum of trainings that they've taught for the last 2 or 3 years.
So my weekend will be spent here.
Right.
Bedtime reading.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought that's what the content book was for.
No gold or challenge.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. I have opened that stupid thing.
Do you guys have any other questions for Ms. Lassiter? Or any other items for discussion within that mill levy certification? Okay, thank you, Ms. Lassiter.
She's gonna stay right there.
Oh, well, great. We're on to the next one with the bond call. Are you doing that one also?
Yeah.
So let me give you just a quick background. The 3 of you here are very familiar with this situation. That was our work with RBC in looking at the interest rates on our bonds and some other pieces that go with that. Ms. Lassiter will give a brief overview, but this affects the bonds that we already have. And affects the changes in the interest rates. And So in being stewards of the taxpayer money, we made a decision to visit with the consulting company around the bonds, to look at an opportunity to kind of redo those bonds, because I recall, I'll let Ms. Lester explain some of those pieces. And we're getting close to that threshold, but we really wanted to give an update, especially with 2 new board members here. At the end of the day, the board approved, the finance director and myself to sign whenever we hit a certain level, and we're getting pretty close to that level. So we, more so for information, wanted to update you as a board of where we were at with the bond column and let Ms. Lester take it.
Sure. Yep, so this references, you see the next, it's just a one-page attachment. So the current debt outstanding for the series 2012 and the series 2013, both general obligation bonds. The resolution is in place and it will expire this June, which grants the authority to proceed with a refunding if indeed the present value savings was in excess of 5%. It hasn't been there until recently. There was a pretty massive rally in the treasury market, which in the treasury, when there's a rally, the yields come down. And so the way that municipal debt trades to treasuries is slightly below that because you get that double tax exemption rather than just the single tax exemption with treasuries, but it essentially tracks it. And particularly in the last year, municipal debt rates and treasury rates have moved almost tighter than they have in like the last 4 or 5 years. So municipal bond rates have generally tracked treasury rates, which have come down enough that the current present value savings, if we did proceed with the refunding, would be a little bit above 5.5%. The market outlook, as you guys are probably generally aware, is that rates tend to be trending downward. The Fed has been pretty open that they intend to probably cut that target by 75 basis points. If you look at Fed fund futures, they're pricing in even additional cuts to that. So rates are moving in our favor. That doesn't mean that we should time the market, or it's not a great idea. I think generally to try to time the market, we hit a bogey and we're within that approved bandwidth. But so this is mainly just to kind of provide you all an update on where things stand there.
And as what we'll do is, I mean, we of course are going to work with the company that finances these and watching this like a hawk. But the minute that happens, we will sign, and I'll let the board know that we move forward with that. But I think if I remember right, and you weren't here at that time, I'm sure you researched it, but Mr. Moore, we were looking at somewhere around a savings of $500,000.
$516,000 currently.
And that's spread over the life of the bond, or the remaining life of the bond.
It doesn't extend the maturity, like the resolution prevents that. So the same average life, same final maturity. The savings would be slightly over 500,000 as it stands. And that's net any costs of issuance associated with the bond. So that's an all-in savings.
That seems pretty significant to me. Does it? I mean,
We're watching it closer. We're a lot closer today than we were when we first signed the resolution. So we thought it was ample time to update the three of you that were here and to bring you guys into the loop on kind of what was happening before you got an email from me that said we just did this.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions about this?
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Lester.
you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the discussion around policy BBBA.
So this one's really simple, and I did run it by Mr. Talbot. We decided a meeting probably wasn't necessary, but this is based on the last election and some conversations and comments that we had. State recommendations and guidelines give each district the opportunity to adopt this. It is the state's recommendation that we do not have campaigning for anything occurring on school grounds, but it was not included in our policy, and it allows for each individual district to include it in their policy. And that definitely became a conversation point during the last election, and I think it's important that it's there. So based on those conversation points, we've chosen to recommend to the board that we make the changes to BBBA And you'll see it, the only difference is in that first full paragraph, what's in bold where it says, no candidate may be running representing a political party and are included would be nor shall any candidate or candidate representative for the Board of Education campaign collect signatures on school district property.
I appreciate that, because I looked for that, we didn't have it in writing.
Yeah.
It was just like unspoken.
Yeah.
Or unwritten, whatever it is, so.
And as we did the research, we found out that it's something that each individual district can adopt. It's still the recommendation, but we thought it's time to put it in writing. So thank you for that.
One thing that's coming to mind as I'm reading this, is it talks about any person who is subject to the pending charge of commission of a sexual offense, but our board doesn't run background checks at this time, and I know that's something that we had talked about doing a while back. Would this be the appropriate policy to add that into? Since we're talking about it here, because how would we actually know if we're not running a background check on our board members?
You're just expecting them to be honest and say, oh, no, that comes with it too, just having a background check.
I think there was something that filled out that asked that
You
question.
just sign it, but there's no,
It's just
you don't do fingerprints or anything.
I guess I would ask that we allow us to see if anybody else puts that we actually do the background checking policy. My gut tells me it is there and you sign an affidavit. So if it was found out later along the way, that we would do something. The other side of that is there's not a situation where we would, as an administration, ever allow board members to be alone with students in the district without somebody else there unless they completed a background check and done a volunteer application. So there are safeguards in place,
Right.
but it would be interesting for us to research to see if any district actually does that, or if it's just based on the affidavit. And then, of course, you know, further down the road, we realize that that happened, it would cause a removal of a board member.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
So are you okay with checking that?
Because if a board member wanted to volunteer to school,
They
you
would
would
still
do the
have to complete the
volunteer
volunteer
application and then.
application,
You're not automatically
Yeah.
just.
That's correct.
Because you're on the board.
I still think it should be done, and it's a good investment if you're up here for 4 years, not like you're doing this every year. I mean, if we're gonna save 500,000.
No, that's salaries. That is for salaries. Don't spend the money.
Earmark $200 in background
Over several, two different funds.
And I think the other thing to know is, of course, sex offenders are public knowledge. There is the sex offender registry. I think
Yeah, there is.
On this here, just thinking, I wonder if we should not add, nor shall any candidate use school resources.
that's in another policy.
That is,
I will double check that, but I am pretty sure that that is in another policy. They can't use school resources.
during their candidacy. Okay.
Yeah, that one was, because that's what it's looking for this piece, but it was, in school grounds. Mhm.
Any other conversation around this policy? So you will bring this back to the board at our next meeting?
We would like to bring it back for approval at the next meeting.
Okay.
And just an update really quick. I know Ms. Parnell and I visited about this a little bit, but policies you'll always see twice, always. Because I think that's statute. You'll always see them come in as a first reading or a discussion, and you'll see them come back for approval at the next meeting.
So next up for discussion is the board norms document. And we, do you want to take this one or do you want me to take it on this? Okay, so we talked a little bit about at the board retreat about updating this document and making it something that is meaningful to us as a board and to our community. We're going to go through it paragraph by paragraph to update different sections of it in the interest of time. We won't do it all in one meeting. And so at this meeting, we're going to talk about meeting protocol. And you'll see posted there the existing board norms and existing meeting protocol. So with that being said, I will open up the floor for conversation and thoughts.
first impression when I read this, it's almost worded like we're expecting people to fight, and we don't want that to happen. It just sounds like, use your words, use nice words. I mean, I feel like, I don't want to speak for other people, feel like I would like it to be respectful in discussion, and, what it says about like, incorporate space for all members to voice opinions without getting the last word. And it just, the way it's worded to me, it just sounds like,
Playground rules.
yeah. So I don't know if we could sum it up, like, in just one or two bullet points. And I'm a fan of bullet points because when you see the whole document, when there's paragraphs, it's a lot of words. So, that's just my opinion on it.
So specifically on bullet point 2, when you're saying incorporate space for all members to voice opinions, you would strike without getting the last word on every issue.
Yeah, because it's last word in quotation marks. It just feels like, that's just how I read it.
Okay.
It just sounds like people are ready to
Corporate
fight.
space for all members to voice their opinions, period.
Yeah.
That would be fun. I think. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's. Seems extra to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Anyone else?
I honestly don't believe that any of those bullet points actually have to be there, but that's my opinion. I kind of feel like if we agree to disagree, that's a pretty fair statement. An ugly, lengthy document, and it's just, I'm not a huge fan.
When it was updated the last time in 2018, so I'm glad we're.
It was updated with the previous superintendent when they came in. It's pretty common practice.
One thing I noticed under meeting protocol, or really the document as a whole, is that we don't have, and we don't have to, but just a thought, is we didn't talk about how the agenda is set or a meeting agenda development. And I don't know if that would be the appropriate place for that, but I know that was a question both of you asked kind of coming into the board, is how that happens. And since this is a public facing document, in the interest of transparency, I think it would be helpful for people to understand the agenda creation process, and what that looks like. I think the more information you have, the better.
I think that would be meeting protocol, because that seems to fit them.
If we add more in creating a link layer document. But also I want the information available, and I don't know where else you would find that information, so it's,
No.
you know.
I think it took me 6 months to figure out how the agenda got put together.
So I have several suggestions. You could say something like the president develops the meeting agendas along with the superintendent. All board members can provide input, suggestions, and ideas for agenda topics. That's one suggestion I typed up. My other thought is under meeting protocol. And again, I don't know if it will exactly fall under this or not. You guys can weigh in. We don't really talk about where committee reports are given, and maybe that's redundant and maybe we don't need to. But maybe that would be helpful. I think it'd be helpful to hear from the newer board members, especially if that would have been helpful to know, like, this is where committee reports are given, or they can also be found in the online portal. Would that have been something that came to mind for you guys?
If I wouldn't have come to previous board meetings, probably. I think if you like are here in the flow, but yeah, if someone, because this document is going to be available to everyone, correct?
Yep, this is already public facing on the website, yeah.
So if, for example, when we had chatted about maybe having a student member, they would be able to read this document and should be able to get the gist of meetings. I think saying how the agenda is created fits in the meeting protocol. I also looked back at my notes. I wrote down, I think it was from one of the samples that we sent Rebecca that said awareness of the different roles we play, because we all wear different hats in the community. I don't know if that needs to be Okay, doesn't make
Yeah, right, it's gonna be kind of
If we
the
take out the.
same more, Molly, about the awareness of different roles we play within the committee.
So for example,
Within the-
when I was asking questions about the math curriculum, it's because I'm a parent who has to help with math homework. And so I'm wondering about that as a parent, also board member, so community member. So, maybe like having that awareness or saying, like maybe I should have said full disclosure, I'm asking this kind of as a parent too. Will I be able to help my kids with their math homework within the curriculum? Just addressing that, like, it's had too many words in there, so somebody knows a good way to say that in like 3 words.
So I'm kind of thinking, and I'm open to thoughts on this, we can take in feedback, and then I can kind of recraft some of the verbiage on this, and then we can bring it back at the next board meeting and not necessarily vote on it, but review it and then move on to the next.
Yeah, and then when we get through each
Paragraph.
section, have kind of the new one and say, this is what we want.
Okay.
So of course, this is a working document amongst you. And then what I did after the retreat is provided the current document that we have. At the end of the day, there is no need to vote on it. It's not a document that will require a vote, and it is the board's choice whether it is a public facing document or a board usage document. That is the board's choice. My recommendation, probably is that for transparency purposes, that it is public facing, but that is your choice. As a board, it does not have to be.
I like the idea of it being public facing. I think it's a helpful document, or it can be.
Right, because it talks about following the chain of command, decision-making, communication with staff, norms for community engagement. I think, yeah. But good to know that we don't have to vote on it.
Yes, at the bottom, it does say agreement reached on November 2nd instead of.
Yeah. Yeah, so voted. Any other feedback on meeting protocol?
Before you move to action items.
Yep.
Can I go back to one of the discussion items?
Yes.
Your question about the using school resources to campaign is not in our policy. It however is part of the Fair Campaign Practices Act. So it will be law. We can mention it in that policy if you want to, or we could leave it alone, but it is not in policy. I was wrong. I knew that I'd read it somewhere recently.
Right.
It's in the Fair Campaign Practices Act.
That's what I was gonna say, because I read it. I was like, I read it.
As long as somebody that is existing on the board and tries to rerun gets that same information.
Every time anybody, even if you're existing on the board, so
You get the same.
So when you run for the board, Deb, for example, got all the same information everybody else did, which is in, we include a copy of the Fair Practices. The Fair Campaign Practices Act.
So now making copies of your, little flyers you're gonna hang up
Right.
at the printer in here and hang them up. You can do it.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's gonna be somebody existing that's gonna, violate is what's gonna happen.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. No, we get the same kind of you guys get when
Yeah.
we rerun.
So it's part of the law.
Anything else? Okay. We're gonna move into action items, which is approval of the mill levy certification that we just discussed. So are there any final items for discussion around this topic? Is there a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion that we approve the mill levy certification as presented.
Second,
Molly?
aye.
Rebecca? Aye. Justin?
Aye.
Matt?
I,
Debbie?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Are there any objections to adjournment? Hearing no objections, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Just a reminder, we'll start at 5 o'clock.